Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Variety Gaming Podcast. You all have phones, right? Well, then you'll love our featured game, Pokemon, the trading card game, Pocket. Later on in the episode, we will unplug from those devices and head over for some tabletop gaming awesomeness with our good friend Fetta. And he's going to talk all about his experience at PAX Unplugged. But first, Fetta, tell us about our featured game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Variety Gaming Podcast, you know that you got to get a variety. So, I think this is your first mobile game, right?
Yep.
Official?
First mobile game.
So, the mobile game itself is Pokemon TCG, or trading card game, Pocket. Developed, published by the Pokemon Company and Game Freak. The description is, experience the fun of collecting Pokemon trading card game cards with Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket. An upcoming game that's already released.
It's out.
It's been out. It hasn't been out for that long, actually.
I pulled this description directly from the website, by the way.
Exactly. So
it's on them.
Cutting edge right now. It's for iOS and Android devices from Creatures, the original developers of the Pokemon trading card game and the DNA company. In this game, you'll be able to open 2 booster packs every day at no cost. So the whole premise of the trading card game Pocket is to open these virtual packs just like you would go to the store and buy some. It's a little bit different though, because normally when you get the cards from whatever local gaming store, Target, Walmart, you get 11 cards, and here you're actually only playing with 5. But it keeps all the ones that are nostalgic, the ones that you remember opening up back in the 90s, early 2000s, and then they have some new ones that are exclusive to the app, Pokemon TCG Pocket. What did you think of the game, Atrax?
So, I am not a huge mobile gamer. There are a few mobile games that have captured my attention in the past. Melvor Idol, Albion Online, which is kind of a hybrid. I played Honkai Star Rail for a good amount of time. That's also kind of a hybrid, but I played it mostly on mobile. One game that I still kind of play is called Flow. It's like a little simple puzzle game. So, but like that's it in terms of mobile games. There's a ton out there, but those are the like 5 that I've ever played. Now with this game, I really enjoyed it. This is now on the list of those games, that limited list of mobile games. I really enjoy it. I've sunk a good amount of hours into it already as we were preparing for the episode. Same with the collecting cards. I really enjoy collecting all of the different cards, and I'll admit, I've already spent some money on some of the packs. The game is that fun. I got the Premium Pass 2, which doubles the amount of packs that you get. So you normally get 2 per day. Now you get 4 per day, plus also some challenges, premium event challenges that you can do, which award you with play mats, card sleeves, all sorts of that like aesthetic stuff, which makes the game more fun to play in my mind. But it's not just, you're opening packs. You also get to use those cards for battles and things like that. It's not just strictly online. I really enjoyed all of the step-up battles that you could play, which are against AI, and the AI decks are predetermined, so you can look at them, especially if you're a beginner, kind of like me. I've played trading card games and I've been around tabletop games. Growing up, I had one friend who was and his dad who were really into tabletop games, and I'd go over to their house often, but it wasn't something that really permeated into my house. I mostly played video games. That being said, I still can comprehend like how to play a lot of these card games, and I can pick them up relatively quickly. So it was nice that I could go through like kind of the basic step up battles. I think they're beginner and then intermediate and then expert. I could go through these beginner challenges and see what the decks I was going to be facing were. So I could already start to get into the mindset of, I should be countering water with electricity and all of this type of stuff with, I think it's leaf or earth, whatever, with fire, that type of thing, to already start getting into that mentality. because again, you're playing against these predetermined decks. And then on top of that, there's also some learning that you can do because those step up battles also provide challenges. Win by turn, I think it's 14, which makes you really think, okay, I'm not just trying to win, but I'm also trying to do it quickly so that my opponent can't start gaining lots of cards. Because I could see where if you're a beginner, it would be very easy to just kind of stall out the game and try and win that way. But this is a lot more focused on quick games. It's only to 3 points, and Pokemon EX versions are worth 2 points. So if you're battling correctly, you can end by turn 14. And that's not just both players' turns. Each player, when they take a turn, counts as one turn. So like I'm turn 1, then Fetta would be turn 2. So it's more of like 6 or 7 turns that you get in order for you to try and beat these AI. And I think that is really cool. It makes it accessible to players who really don't know, mobile players, which we know the mobile community is pretty vast because a lot of people have phones, and even some people who don't play PC or console or even tabletop games play mobile games. Like my grandparents play, Farmville on their iPads and stuff. So, that's just the reality of the mobile gaming market. And I think that's a great way to now make Pokemon and the trading card game and just card game, like battling card games in general, accessible to new players. I really hope they keep making more of these. Maybe you have the opportunity to play against AI versions of other players' decks, like the driver tars from some racing games. I think that would be kind of cool you could, have that human aspect of creating a deck that's not, super like AI friendly maybe, but then it's forcing the AI. I don't know. I just think it would be cool, again, making it more accessible to kind of start you getting used to different decks that you wouldn't see from an AI battle, kind of quote unquote random decks, and get you prepared for playing against actual other players. Because right now there was a Venusaur event which was an AI battle, but now one of the current events is a PvP event. And so you need to get used to playing against other players, playing against these various decks where you won't exactly know. So I think that would be a cool idea for some of these step up battles, but all in all, it's just a lot of fun. The expert challenges, I'm still not all done with. I need to fine tune my trading card game skills just a little bit more. I have a fire deck that I'm working with currently to try and beat Venusaur. And so I still am not getting a flawless victory, which is one of the challenges. And I think I need to fine tune my deck just a little bit more. One card that I really need is Sabrina to be able to swap the enemy's active Pokemon. But even so, right? Like it's just, I've bought some cards, I've sunk a good amount of time into the game, and that's mostly just AI. I have done the PvP battle event. I'm really, really not good at it. I am currently 3 wins and 6 losses. So basically half of my matches I'm winning. But even so, it's fun. The victories have been a lot of fun too, because mostly it's been reverse sweeping people where I'll get maybe 1 point at first, but they'll put me back behind the wall 2 points, and I'm, trying to evolve my Charizard and trying to get that firestorm going, but it really looks like I can't. And then I remember I can, oh yeah, I've got this card, and then I can play this and swap this out, and then you win, because even though I've got 1 point and they've got 2, their Pokemon EX is worth 2 points. And so then you get the 2 points, and it is a lot of fun, even if you're not great at it like me. The only thing I didn't like, the only event I didn't like was the Chansey pick. Like in the game, they have these Chansey picks where you can spend energy stored energy to basically pick one card from somebody else's pack that they've opened. And so they made it an event with its own. It's true, it didn't take some of your energy in order to get the cards, but I preferred the Venusaur event and the other promo event. Oh, what was it? I forget. Anyway, primarily the Venusaur event, but I preferred that style where you had the energy and then you did the battle, and then you got, at the end of winning the expert battle, you were guaranteed to get one card from a pack. The Chansey event where it shows you the 5 cards and then it makes you pick one and then it shows you the ones that you didn't get. It's like, I already know I'm not getting it. Can you know, like, I don't know. That's my feeling anyway. I would rather battle for it. And even though it's still random and I'm getting the same amount of cards, I don't know. I already know that I'm not getting the rare thing when I see the card that I get. You don't need to remind me of like, here, pick one of these 5. And I'm like, okay, well, do I pick 3? Do I pick 2? All right, I pick 2. And it ends up being 3. And you just feel like awful at the end of it. At least with the Venusaur battle event, I won the battle and I felt good. And then I got a card and it's like, oh man, well, I'll go and I'll battle it next time. There wasn't that showing of like, oh, this is what you didn't get. I don't know. That's my personal thought. That's the only negative that I have about the game so far. Everything else I've thoroughly enjoyed, the PvP and the PvE and the premium pass. I really hope I can fill out this Pokedex before we move on to the next pack. I'm currently at 210 out of 226 for the Genetic Apex Pokedex. I've acquired 1,089 cards. I checked before we started recording. I got all the cards from the Venusaur event, thankfully, and all the versions of Charizard, including the Gold Crown EX one. So that's my favorite starter Pokemon from the 3, Squirtle, Charizard, and Ivysaur, or Bulbasaur, sorry. So that I'm happy with that so far, at least. I hope I can get the Mew and the Pikachu, but we'll see what happens. I don't know how much time is left on the event, but I keep logging in every day and making sure I get my 4 packs. So I'm on the grind for sure. If I don't get it, it is what it is. We'll see if they allow trading too. If they allow trading in the future, then I can for sure fill out that Pokedex, but we'll see what happens. Stay tuned for more updates on that one for sure. But Fetta, I've blabbed long enough about it. It's time to hear from a card game aficionado and just tabletops in general. How have you been vibing with Pokemon Pocket?
It is addicting, that's for sure. One thing kind of like contrary to popular belief, I guess you could say, I'm awful at building decks for any sort of trading card game. I don't know what it is. It's all about finding synergies and making sure that you get like a good flow state in your deck, but sometimes I'm just a better collector than I am a deck constructor. But that's one of the beautiful things about this game. You have that collecting aspect, but it's just so much more simple. Because even when I was a kid growing up, I never really played Pokemon as a trading card game. This app actually helps teach it a little bit. It's not exact to how you would actually play the trading card game if you were doing it in person, like the 3-point system, where you have to defeat 3 Pokemon or 1 EX and another Pokemon to win. It's similar. You have to do that for 6 points, ultimately, in the trading card game. The EX or the whatever V-Star in the new sets, whatever fancy Pokemon that you have up, it's still worth 2. But another thing that I really like about the battling here is the way they chose to use energy. If you've ever played a trading card game in person, shuffling the cards, you know how painful it is when all you have is energy or you have no energy. It's just crushing. You could have a hand that's just, if you played Magic the Gathering, like 6 lands in your hand, and you can only play 1 per turn, so you're kind of stuck sitting there until you draw something, and that's when your opponent can kind of get to you. Or you're stuck and you have no action economy because you can only attack things if you attach energy to it. And the way the game does it is you generate an energy every 2 turns, I believe, which is great. The game will actually guide you to what you can do, because when you have those supporter cards, you can only play one per turn that you have, essentially. And if you didn't, it will remind you that you have the option to do so. So I just think it's really great. So it can help you learn how to battle. And then because you don't have to physically go through your stack of bulk Pokemon cards to make a deck, you can just kind of click it and use it immediately. It helps teach that sort of deck building style, which I think is great. But the reason I actually downloaded this game to begin with was to open packs of Pokemon cards for free. I didn't spend any money. I don't know how I managed to, not spend any money, because it was almost inevitable when I downloaded it, but somehow I've contained myself and I just open my 2 packs a day, except for when I meet certain challenges. You have hourglasses that you can reduce the timer. It's just so great. You open these packs and you kind of get that same boost of dopamine when you get the card that you've been looking for, and when you're opening it virtually, it will flash and say, this is a new card, you haven't collected it yet. And then it shows when you kind of go into the Pokédex, which is great. Ultimately, I think it's a good thing. I don't have nearly as many cards as Atrax. I think I only have somewhere in the neighborhood of like 300 with 156 out of the decks. So I'm not actually that far behind you, if it makes sense. But, I mean, the curve is way steeper once you start getting to these 1-star, 2-star, and crown cards, which is the level of rarity they do. But I love it. I've been working my way through the Mewtwo deck. So, well, not deck, but that set. So when you're opening these packs, right now we have 3 different types of card packs that we can open. The Pikachu, the Charizard, and the Mewtwo. And I've just been searching for Mewtwo because I love that boy. Not only in Pokemon, but in Super Smash Bros. Too. Mewtwo's my guy. I think it's great. It's a ton of fun. I'm going to continue playing it. I open it at least twice a day. I can tell you that. And there's no ads.
For your 2 packs. Well, see, and that's the other thing that's surprising to me too, is that normally with mobile games, you are bombarded every single time you open up the game or something. Do you want to buy gold? Discount on gold. This, that, the other thing. Maybe once, but that's it. And the only time that it's really apparent is when you try to do something that you don't have the energy or the gold, or the energy or the stamina for. Same with your packs. You can acquire hourglasses in order to speed it up through doing the challenges and other things, but you only have so many of those. And so when you run out, it says, hey, do you want to use this many Pikachu hourglasses and this much gold? Do you want to buy this much gold in order to get your packs now? No? Okay, that's it. And it's done. And it doesn't offer you can buy extra gold too if you want in order to, no. In fact, I saw on the gold purchase store that you can only use a maximum of 720 gold per day. Now, of course, that's like, I think $150 or something like it's a large amount. I'm not saying that it's a small amount that you're limited to, but the fact that it's written in the store that you are limited to only so much gold per day, I think is actually pretty amazing. I believe that it is because of some of the laws where the game is made, but either way, whether it's a law or not, I think it's a good idea, and I think it's cool that they put that there. Obviously, easy way around it, you just make multiple accounts. You're allowed, I believe, to make multiple accounts. I've seen a lot of people with multiple accounts, so technically a way to get around it, but even so, all of your accounts are limited, so you have to go through the hassle and you have to spread out all of that. I don't know. I guess you could argue that that makes it worse, but I think it's cool nonetheless that they limit you that much to how much you can spend in game, because at the end of the day, it is about collecting the cards. The battles are a lot of fun, and I can see where a lot of people enjoy them, especially in PvP. I believe that there is a ranked mode, or at the very least, there's like an online mode where you can be I know there's a random queue, but there's also like a specific queue that you can use in order to battle. And like, I don't know if it's ranking or if it's just points or something like that. Either way, you can try and battle and get your wins. And obviously, there's a stats page, so you can gain a lot of wins and have lots of stats that way. I think that's cool.
I just took a look at the actual app. There's now a button for card trading, and it just says coming soon. So we're in for it. We can trade. I mean, we all knew it should have been coming just based on the nature of it being a trading card game. It wouldn't be a trading card game if you couldn't trade cards.
Right.
It would be a CCG instead of a TCG. So
yeah, that's a good point. But that's going to be a lot of fun. And now that we know for sure that there's going to be trading, I will say make sure that you very carefully choose what cards you obtain your flare on, because those flares burn cards. And if you're going to be trading those cards, then you probably want to keep the rare ones unless you're absolutely sure that you want the flare and there's nothing else that you're going to want to get. Because now that trading is coming soon, people are going to be going crazy and it's going to be wild. It'll be interesting to see how they handle the trading. Maybe it'll be you trade in your cards, you like post on wherever.
Yeah, like a marketplace or something.
Yeah, I want to trade this card for this card, and they only allow it that way. Or will they allow you to add users and specifically trade with them? You better be able to trade with your friends, but I could see where scammers and stuff like that could easily get through too. So it's gonna be interesting to see what the system is like. I'm excited for trading though. I've got some cards to acquire. I've got 16 cards that I need for the Genetic Apex Pokedex. I have all the event cards. I didn't get the Lapras event though. I joined the game after the Lapras event. So I'm missing that chunk in my event Pokedex, and it like drives me crazy because it's like card 12 through card 19 or 17 or something like that. It's just a chunk missing that I'll probably not get because they're event cards. So people are not likely to trade them. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully I can fill that in. At the very least, I can fill the genetic Pokedex in. Well, Fetta, any other thoughts on Pokemon?
Download it, open packs, send us a message, and we'll trade cards with you because we want to fill out our Pokedexes.
There it is. Fill out the Pokedexes and do it quick because in our next segment, we're going unplugged. We're going to leave our devices behind and we're going to head over to PAX Unplugged. Mr. Fetta here got to go and got to cover quite a few different games from quite a few different publishers, and I saw the pictures on Snapchat, and I was excited. I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to hear all about it. So, Fetta, you have the floor. Tell us about PAX Unplugged.
Oh my goodness! So this was actually my first PAX Unplugged event. I've been to PAX East a couple of times, and that's the video game focused one, but this was a total different story. And not only because I love tabletop games, but one thing that I realized when I went to PAX East this past March, it seemed like it was getting smaller. And that kind of concerned me. And I had that on the back burner when I went to Unplugged. It was last week, actually, December 6th, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I drove my butt down, and I didn't know what to expect as far as people. When I tell you PAX Unplugged was at least twice the size of PAX East, that might be an understatement. So it was at the Pennsylvania Convention Center, and it is a whole city block, and this con filled it. Filled it. It was massive.
That's what we love to hear.
Massive. I went for 2 days and I don't think I saw everything. I tried as hard as I possibly could, but I didn't see everything there was to see at this convention. As far as gaming conventions go, there's always going to be tournaments and there's always going to be pop-up events to actually play the games in a competitive setting. But that was not my focus because One thing that I like to do when I go to conventions is not like prioritize. It is prioritized, but I want to look at the indie game developers. I want to see who is creating new things and trying to put themselves out there, because I may not hear about it otherwise. So that's really where I focused here. And I actually had a little bit of VIP access. So I went on a couple of media tours, which was great. The first one that I want to cover was a mega booth at PAX Unplugged. This was one of the priorities for me. Friday, as soon as I got there, I went to Forever Stoke Creative. And this was a really great group. So it's a game studio, but not a game studio. They kind of pitched it to me as if they were mentors for new game developers. So they've worked on a ton of different projects, helped people from game idea, game design, art, all of it, go through the process, marketing, anything, you name it, you can talk with them. And they provide this creative direction as well as some business direction as well. They probably had 15 or 16 that were at PAX alone, but I really want to talk about a couple that stood out in particular. The first one I want to mention, I'm shocked I didn't come home with, but it's called Aldara. And it's a miniature focused game, sort of like a Risk type game where it's area control, but you are in giant airships. So you are flying these pirate ships that fly through the sky. And the whole thing is focused on this aerial combat. I really wanted the minis just so I can paint them. I'm not going to lie to you. I talked to the developer. I was like, do you need somebody to paint these things? I will do it. Just give me a model. I will do it. And they were like, no, we already had somebody who painted them. And I was like, but I could do it better. And it didn't work. But I tried my hardest. The minis themselves are gorgeous. They just released another Kickstarter to increase the amount of factions they have. But it's really cool. That's all I'll say for that one. But I will tell you that I kept going back to look at this game and I wanted it. But I think they're charging like $150 US for the base game, and it's definitely worth the value. It's just I was at a convention and I didn't want to carry the box around. It's probably like 2 feet long, the box, and it was heavy, full of minis. But they had a ton of other games, one being Trash Talk, and this is kind of a party game where you're trying to create a language. So one player is in the dumpster and they are a raccoon, and they're trying to communicate with the possum that's outside. You have a couple of cards in front of you and they'll have regular words on it, like surprise or money or job or something like that, just random nouns. And the only way the raccoon and the possum can communicate with each other is by putting out pieces of human trash. So they had stuff like a honey stir or a penny or a little race car, a potted plant, a broken potted plant. And you had to associate one of these items with the word on the card. So whatever parallel you could draw. So maybe if the card was birthday, you think, for my birthday, people usually give me a card with money in it, so I'm going to put the coin there. And then after a set amount of time goes by, you release this screen and see if the possum and the raccoon actually matched up the correct piece of human trash to the word. And once you get them all correct, you move on to the next round kind of thing. It was really neat. Predictive strategy, mind game. The pieces were really interesting. Another game that they had that was cool was called Flickering Stars. And anytime there's a space game, you can kind of draw me in with this. So the whole point of this game was there are planets surrounded on the table, a circular table, and you had little people that would be on the planets. And you had a variety of different ships on your side that all had a flat bottom that you would flick across the table. So they would glide towards those planets that were randomly out there in order to try and pick up people on your team and bring them back to your home planet. This was hard because if you crash landed into the planet, your ship had to go back to the beginning. You couldn't save anyone. If you crashed into the planet, the people were okay, but if you had people on your ship and you crashed into a planet, they all died. It was very unfortunate how many casualties I had when I demoed this game, but it was a lot of fun. It was a great game, even though I really stunk at it. Dexterity games, because I'm so jacked up and anxious and excited to be at this event, I'm never, ever, ever going to do well with a dexterity game. It was a lot of fun to play. I can tell you that.
I'm not good with dexterity games either, to be honest. There's one, I forget what it's called, but there's like there's two sides. It's a 2-player game, and there's a little wall in the middle, and it's got a hole right in the center. And your goal, the hole may be the size of a quarter. And there's a string on both ends, and both of you have like 5 little pucks to start, and your goal is to fling the little puck through the hole onto the other player's side. And the first person to get all of them onto the other side wins. I can never win at that game. I always seem to like miss, or just it bounces off, or like I'll flick it and it'll go like flying off the table behind the person or something like that. And looking at the images of this game, it gives me the same vibes of like, dude, my spaceship's going right off the side of the table, or I'm crashing right into a planet.
It was brutal.
That would be me.
And then to make matters worse, you finally get people on your ship and you're floating back through space. Your opponent has a giant cannon. Well, you have one too, but you have a cannon where you load a plastic cannonball and you pull it back. There's a little spring inside the cannon on your little ship, and you fling it. And if you hit the other person's ship, all their people die. It's insane.
No.
That happened to me 4 times. It was not fair. Well,
rough.
There's a little plastic fin that you could put on the back of the ship where your finger would normally go when you're aiming it. So it's just resting on the ship. If you farted too hard, like the little fin would fall off. So all you really had to do is kind of touch it with the cannonball and it would fall off, and that signifies that your ship is broken.
Okay, gotcha.
It happened to me 4 times in a 10-minute demo. I was upset.
Ooh, that's rough.
It's okay. The person who was demoing the game that absolutely like beat the pants off of me got really excited when he made a good shot and knocked over his monster.
There you go.
He was a little sticky after, and I was fine.
Gotta clean up the game.
But it was a really good time. And they had a lot of other games, one like Made Up Movies or Terrible Influencer. They had levels of improv, and, you know, it had a real big social aspect with the Made Up Movies one in general. Imagine you had a whole bunch of different decks that you pull from. One would be topics of the movies. Movies, it would be like the cast and crew and like a plot twist. And you would draw all the cards off the top of each deck, put them out in a line, and then you would pitch it towards everyone else. So we had an example where it was a movie that was going to be like American Sniper, but it starred Tom Cruise and Miley Cyrus. And it was going to be the American Sniper, but it's going to be really a sports-themed movie. And the person who was drawing the cards flipped it for the Olympics because of that Turkish sharpshooter. So they were like, it's the sport aspect of shooting with Miley Cyrus and Tom Cruise, but it's also going to be kind of like a comedy like the 40-Year-Old Virgin, because that was the next card they flipped over. And it was hysterical. So to watch them do that improv and try and pitch the movie to you in real time as they're figuring out what is going to happen in the movie, what they're trying to pitch. So we were all laughing. And then it moves into the second round where everyone else is a film critic, right? Or like a producer or investor or whatever you want to call it. And you had a hand of cards with wacky, zany questions on what you would have to ask the person to see if they could continue their improv pitch. So one of the cards that I got was, how is this movie going to make me feel good about my sad, pathetic life? And they had to answer my question right there off the cusp. And it was just a ton of fun. I could see that one if you got together with a bunch of friends and you had a couple beverages with some suds in them. You'd be doing good. That was a ton of fun.
I'm checking that one out for sure. Made Up Movies. That's on my list.
Cool. It's a really cool movie. Really cool game. The best part was actually asking the questions, because improv is hard sometimes when you have to try and make it a case for something that you don't even know what it is. And it's different every single time. So it was just really fun. And I got a little bit of an exclusive for this company. A little game that we can't really talk about yet. So
snap.
You're going to have to
stay tuned to the Variety Gaming Podcast.
Tweet us on
to
X.
hear about it.
What is it, Blue Sky now?
Yep.
Yeah, Blue Sky's picking up.
By the way, thank you for bringing that up. Over 100 followers on Blue Sky now. So shout out to everyone who's been tuning in from Blue Sky. You're awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I've been talking about this company for a long time, but I really just like their mission and how they kind of really serve to help people that want to create these amazing games. Like these concepts, it takes a lot to be creative and come up with these games. And to have a studio like Forever Stoked, it's just really great. But stay tuned for my secret game if you want to know about it. It was a ton of fun. That was another one where I was laughing hysterically.
Can't wait to hear about it.
Absolutely. I'll have to pick up a copy and bring it next time we see each other's.
For sure.
Another game studio isn't really a small one, like I just spent a couple minutes talking about how I try and make those a little bit of a priority. This was Mantic Games, and they just came out with a miniatures game that I was so excited for and lucky enough to get a copy at my local game store, and this is Halo Flashpoint. I love skirmish games, so this is miniatures games on a tabletop. Usually it's a 3x3 small game. You have only a handful of models, anywhere from 4 to 8 on the table. Halo Flashpoint is 4-on-4. Duke it out, Slayer style. It's awesome. I wanted to see it in action because obviously it's such a new game. There's not really a community established for it. I'm actually still painting all of mine right now. They're in the works. I got a red versus blue going on. Very excited. But I got to hang out with some of the creators of the game, and I got myself a little bit of a sneaky limited edition Master Chief model. It was supposed to come out. Yeah, no, I was so excited about it. It was supposed to come with the Kickstarter, and of course I missed the Kickstarter by 3 days by the time I finally logged on to do it. So I couldn't get the Master Chief model, and I was lucky enough to have a conversation with these guys, and they sold me a little copy of it, and I'm so excited to paint this guy up. He's going to be really cool.
That's so sick. I'm looking at the Ultimate Spartan bundle on their website. It's cool because it looks like some of the minis come painted already, but then some of them come unpainted.
They all come unpainted, my friend.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Snap. This is a full paint your own set.
Full paint your own. So one of the things that they do that I think is great is they give it in colored plastic. So they have red and blue colored minis. So you don't have to paint it. I mean, you never have to paint any model that you use for the game because at the end of the day, they're just pieces to get the job done. I like to paint them. Some people don't paint them. But they make it so much easier for you to tell it apart right out of the get-go. Moving on. Another thing to talk about for this, I spent way too much money at this convention walking around backpacks full of board games. One that I had to pick up because I saw it at PAX East a year ago before it was officially announced on Kickstarter. I saw it again in March when they finally had kind of pushed one through and they're starting to do production. Third time's the charm, I finally picked up a copy of it. This is from Chaotic Great Games, and it's a card game called Good Knock. It is a fantasy world that they came up with where the sun is dying. So the Earth is kind of turning into this massive ice age, and there's going to be a struggle for resources, but they have these shattered crystals throughout that are a source of major energy and heat, and that's kind of how they keep their societies going. You pick a faction, and you duke it out on the battlefield. It's a trading card game, very simple, 20 card decks, and it's not a trading card game where you get booster packs. They give them all to you, so it is a CCG. Sorry, you have all of the cards available, at least for right now, and you can make your own deck. It's only 20 cards. They give you enough to make 2 variations of the deck right out of the gate, so 40 cards per faction, and then you can mix and match as well. And you play it on a 3x3 grid, so very simplistic. There's a type of fighter, either a soldier, hunter, or brute. So it has this rock, paper, scissors mechanic where brutes do good against soldiers, hunters do good against brutes, and soldiers do good against hunters. So you kind of have like a level stack and things like that. But it's a ton of fun. I picked it up, made my wife play it. She's into it. The reason I really like it is because it helps me develop those deck building skills. There's only 20 cards in the deck. There's a limited amount. I don't have to search for them. I don't have to spend $600 to build a competitive deck. They're all right there, and you can test it out because the games fly. It's only a 12 to 15 minute game when you actually play it. And the way you win is by getting the other person's deck that they have completely done. So they have to get through all those 20 cards, and by the time they do that, if it's kind of like Uno but in reverse, because you want to have cards. If the other person's out of cards, they lose. Ton of fun. And I picked up one of their expansions because it's a nomadic faction that follows around these giant magical yaks.
Okay.
That's cool.
How many expansions are there?
For that one?
Yeah.
So right now they have 2 expansions, one being the Oroxy, which I was just talking about, which is the nomads with the axe. And then they have the Rotborn, which is kind of like a plague style Underdark. If you watched Arcane, like the Undercity vibe.
Yeah.
And they're coming out with, I think, 1 or 2 more new expansions for their upcoming Kickstarter in March, where they have mermaids.
Okay.
Which is rad.
So it's kind of a hybrid, you could say, where it's like it's a trading card game in the sense of you could trade someone from like another expansion, but what's the point? Just buy the expansion, right?
Yeah, no, you'd want all the cards so you can kind of mix and match your own deck in and of itself.
Right.
Because you have basic cards, which are going to be your hunters, brutes, and soldiers. And then you have your hero cards, which are a little bit more unique. And they give you different abilities that are typically built into the faction itself. And with the factions, they're asymmetrical, so they all have their own different playstyle.
Okay.
Like the Gloaming is the name for their skeletal undead horde kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that one really works on kind of getting people out onto the battlefield, and instead of going to the discard, they go back in your hand or going back into your deck, so that you kind of have this sense of an undying horde of skeletons that you have to kind of work your way through.
Right.
And then you have other ones that are focused on, they're like demons. So instead of the natural progression across the battlefield into those 3 rows, they can attack from different corners of the battlefield and kind of spread their tentacles as far as they can, but they can't really move as fast. So there are different play styles built into each of the different factions, and you could really play around with it and find which one you really like, and then you can tweak the cards in that deck to be more towards your play style within it. So I think it's really good. I can't wait to keep playing more of it. And just because the games are so quick, you can get so many in, get the reps in, see how many times you're actually pulling that one super cool card that you put into your 20 card deck. And I think it's really great for the fundamentals of building other trading card games. So, and the art is really cool. I love the cartoony fantasy style. It's really neat. Plus, the developers of that game, they're located real close to me out in Boston, and they're all very sarcastic people, and it's really fun to have a conversation with them. Kind of moving forward, there are a couple more that I really want to talk about because I just had such a great experience talking with these people that created the games. One that I have to talk about is Original Sasquatch Games and Catastrophe, the game of 9 lives. So I met with the inventor and CEO of Original Sasquatch Games. We had a really great conversation, just a really good down-to-earth person. He loves cats. He started this company with his partner, and they kind of took it and ran with it. So, Catastrophe, the game of 9 lives. Ultimately, the cool thing about this game is that it's a little bit of a hybrid situation. You have a hand of cards that you can play to try and knock your opponent down the cat tower that has 9 levels. So you play these cards and you have to try and knock your opponent down, but there are cards that will block other cards. So I could say you get attacked by a swarm of vacuums and you have to roll a 4 to a 6 on a 6-sided die, or you lose a life. They can either choose to leave their fate up to chance, roll the die, see how it happens, or you can play cards that either skip you, block it, or reverse it to the other person. So it's a really cool mechanic in that way where you can play with these cards. You start with 3 and you can play as many as you want. And after you're done with that, they call it the claw phase. So you're kind of like battling back and forth with trying to make the other people lose their lives. After you're done with the claw phase, it moves to the catastrophe phase. And you pull a card from the catastrophe deck, and it's Mario Party minigame style. So it could be anything from like Tiddlywinks to roll doubles first, or see who can meow the longest. Like ton of fun, like random silly little games to see if there's a bad effect that happens to you. So I could be playing, I could make you lose 3 lives with all my cards, and you rolled poorly and you're down by 3, and then we do the catastrophe and I lose that game, and then we're tied right back up. So it's a ton of fun. And they have power cats. So these are unique, some famous cats like the Angry Cat or Bubbles that are actual viral famous cats. And then they also have some fictional ones like Meowth Vader or Cat Thanos, but I forget his name. But they're one-time use unique cards that give you an overpowered ability in that round, and it's just so much fun. And the whole time you're trying to... What's that?
I was going to say really quick, I'm looking here. I see on the card reference, red glowy dot. When a red glowy dot card is played, apply its effect immediately. No other cards can be played until the effect is finished. That is hilarious.
Yeah, because the cat it drops everything it wants to and just chases the red glowy dot. There's nothing you can do. Nothing to distract you. The humor within it is just fantastic. I love the mini games. A lot of pop culture references. It makes you chuckle, and the game itself is really fun. They have a really great product, and if there's anything that I recommend you go try, it's this game. It's a ton of fun. You can cut me off whenever you need to.
No, we're getting through
We're going
this list.
for it.
You wrote it down.
God. For everybody listening, it is 3 typed pages of notes that I did when I went back to the hotel on Friday night. So this doesn't even include what I did on Saturday. How's that?
Look at that.
That's
amazing.
That's
how large this convention was compared to...
It was so cool.
PAX East.
Yeah. So another one that I want to highlight is Gem Blenders. This is an actual trading card game. Small company, just a couple of guys. They did a trading card game. They're based in New York City. You have 4 heroes. And these heroes are not very much like heroes. They are plain Jane people. But you can power them up with gems. So in your deck, you filter through and you try and find these gems to power up your guys. Each of them has a certain amount of gems that they can actually accept. So like 2 gems, 3 gems, or 4 gems. You start to play them onto each of your heroes, and once you get to a certain level and combination of gems on one hero, you can play a blend card. Excuse me. I'm just so excited. My voice is going. But you play these blend cards, and that essentially powers them up, and it gives them a super ability, and you can fight, and it's just really cool. I don't know how to explain it. The way it works, very simple mechanics. There are action cards that you can also play. You can only play 5 of them over the course of the game, so you have to be really strategic with how you're going to play these actions. Some of the actions could include, search the deck for a specific gem that you need and then shuffle, or search the deck for a specific blend card that you need, and then you can play it. But only having 5 of those actions is actually really, really limiting. So it was a lot of fun to try and figure out when exactly I should play my action cards, because if I play all 5 right out of the gate and then I'm kind of beat later because they played action cards that stripped me of my blends and I just had this lowly hero, you can kind of get messed up real quick. It was a ton of fun to play. They had a couple of tournaments actually over the course of the weekend, and they were giving out a booster box, which was really cool. And because they're New York City based, their first set was actually a New York City pizza. So it was just, I love the little things that come through with these events and with these small companies. So it was a ton of fun to play that one. The last one I really want to touch upon is All Play Games. This is a bigger company. They actually are known for making game tables and game storage and game bags. So like with me, I have this giant bag that looks like a Domino's takeout bag. And it's made specifically for board games, and the standard size requirement is a box of Ticket to Ride, which is a train game that a lot of people play. It's one of the first board games that a lot of people get into, and that has become the standard measurement for how big a bag is. It's like, it can fit 6 Ticket to Ride boxes. You could fill it with Ticket to Ride boxes, but it's just funny how that became the standard unit of measurement. But All Play Games also publishes games, and I've known about them for a little while. I backed one of their I forget how they called it, but it's essentially small form games that are like take a minute to learn but a lifetime to master kind of game. I backed it a while ago, and it came with 4 boxes with different games that had different art styles and different game mechanics. So it had Chomp, which is a drafting game, which means like you have a set pile of cards or tokens that you needed to pick one from and then pass it to the left. And then there's Sail, which is a nautical trick-taking game. And trick-taking games are one that are always a little bit harder for me to understand for whatever reason. It's like if you were to play Setback and there's a trump card and it's like a suit is better than another and you want to win the trick by winning the hand or whatever. It's so hard for me to understand, but the game is really cool. It tries to simplify it where you're just trying to set a priority, get to the treasure, and sail away with it. And then there were a couple other ones, a roll and write called Mindspace. So when you talk about roll and writes, it's like a Yahtzee style game. And then Couture, which is a creative improv fashion game where you're trying to, I guess it kind of could be considered a trick-taking game, where you're trying to win the favor of the fashion magazines by making a certain set of features on your dress. Pretty cool. But that's not why I went over to All Play Games, because I already had those. One that I really wanted to see was this game called Lure, like fishing lure. And this one is a game where you wager dice to catch fish. So you set up everything and you have a little screen in front of you. So a little trifolded card. And behind it you have a 20-sided die, a 12-sided die, and 5 6-sided die. So like 5 regular dice and 2 special dice. And then there's a deck of cards that have different fish on them. The art is fantastic. And you deal out 3 fish to the center of the pond. And you'll flip it over and you'll have like a smallmouth bass, a rainbow trout, and a sturgeon. Each of them have different point values and each of them have different catch conditions. So those would be that you'd have to roll a certain number on the dice or have like a pair of numbers on the dice. And everybody who's playing the game, it's like up to 6 people at a time, goes behind their little screen and picks which dice they want to roll in order to catch the fish. Seems simple, gets complex. Because the person who selects the least number of dice rolls first. And this is where you can kind of play the game a little bit and kind of help plead your own case by only picking a small number of dice. The person with the least amount of dice rolls first, and they can catch all of the fish. It's happened many a time. So if I picked out of my dice, I only wanted to pick 3 dice, and Atrax picked 4 dice. We would both secretly select the number of dice that we wanted, and then at the same time we reveal it. I only had 3, so I roll first. I make my roll, and I can catch 2 out of the 3 fish. I collect them, and I get their point values. And then it goes back and keeps doing it. The 20-sided die and the 12-sided die are special dice. So you'll see if you play the game that most of the fish you only need to roll probably anywhere between like a 7 or a 15 total to catch it, which is why that 20-sided die is so powerful, because you could just pick that one and hopefully catch it. But there's a cooldown on those. It was a ton of fun. I stepped up to the table. It was me and 5 other strangers rolling dice, yelling, having a blast. I had to pick this game up.
All in all, how many games did you pick up at PAX Unplugged? To kind of wrap it all up in a whole little, because we only talked about Friday. That wasn't even Saturday.
Saturday, I did a couple of different things. I went to a lot of my miniature painting friends. I talked to Huge Miniatures, who did a lot of basing materials, and I picked up some stuff there. One of my favorite companies is Lethal Shadows. They actually make my paint scythe, which is a metal paintbrush that has replaceable tips. And one thing they debuted for PAX Unplugged was a Kolinsky sable brush head. And if you know anything about art, those are natural hair brushes. They work so well. I had to pick some of those up, even though they were quite expensive. But I was so happy to see that they actually made it for my paintbrush, because I just really like it. And I've gotten used to the handle. And then I played a lot of card games on Saturday. And one thing that PAX Unplugged did was they had miniature painting lectures. So Professor went to a lecture on Saturday and learn how to paint miniatures. So we did a whole bunch of stuff on color theory. Day 1 was find all these games. Day 2, paint stuff. But to answer your question, how many games did I pick up? I bought 8 games and a mystery box. So the mystery box is from a company called R&R Incorporated, and it cost me $50. Open it up, see how many games are inside. They say the value is around $120. I opened this. I got 6 games from that mystery box alone on top of the 8 that I purchased. So we're somewhere in the neighborhood of 14 games.
That's awesome. And of those 14 games, which one would you say is like the highlight?
Catastrophe is a highlight. I love Good Knock. Both are very entry-level games, supporting small businesses, local creators. Go check them out. They're really, really cool.
You heard it here, folks. Go check out Good Knock and Catastrophe. Made Up Movies is also going to be on my list, at least hearing all these descriptions. Fetta, thank you so much for bringing your experience from PAX Unplugged here to the Variety Gaming Podcast. Hopefully all of you listeners out there enjoyed it and also enjoyed our featured game, the Pokemon Trading Card Game Pocket Edition. For all of you mobile gamers out there with phones, our weekly poll, or I guess episodic poll this time around is, are you a fan of tabletop games? Yes? No? Kind of? Hopefully we don't have any no's out there. But even so, I'm a yes. We all know Fetta is a yes.
It better be a yes. Come on.
It better be a yes. Be sure to vote in the poll and let us know, were you at PAX Unplugged? Or did you enjoy any of these games that Fetta was talking about? Let us know on X and at Blue Sky at Variety Games Pod. As always, we are on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple. Thank you all so much for listening, and we will see you next episode.